Hello and welcome to this episode of Sunday Driver. Today we are diving back into the Z. It is time to get this thing going. So we're going on to the next step. Sorry about my super messy garage, but working with what we got. So this setup came off of the blue car, as did that door. But basically what I was trying to do when I was building the last car was prepping the car for power. Everything was so that once we did add in more power that it was 100% ready to go. So, quick walkthrough here. We have the BC Racing Coilovers. These are awesome. The car handled a million times better once these went in over the stock style suspension. I went to a disc conversion. These came from a company called Silvermine Motors. If I remember right, this is basically a stock setup off of an S12 Nissan. But anyways, these work great. And then we went to the CV axles. So let me step back a little bit. So on the brakes, I had the drums for a while and they would stop the car fine, but I had the biggest problem with them locking up under hard braking. So they could be pretty sketchy on a mountain road in particular. The CVs, these are from Wolf Creek Racing. I think now it is Fudofab or Fudofab. These are so much better and they can take way more power than the stock CVs can, and plus they have no noise. And these were powder coated. These are the stock ones. I mentioned this when we reviewed Andrew's 240, but if you look at them from one side, notice how it curves out this way, and then if you look at the other side, it's flipped. So when Nissan made these, they basically made one side and then they just flipped it for the other side, and it's one of the ways that they were able to make this car as affordable as it was. Fortunately, I have spares for this bolt right here, but I've been through every nut and bolt on this car, and this one right here is the most expensive and most difficult to find. So as you can see, it's missing over here, but we should have two on the car. But anyways, what we're doing today, we're going to take off the rear support section of it. It's all rusty and gross. We are going to paint and prep it so it looks as pretty as the rest of the setup. We're getting it all cleaned. Gonna repack the grease on the CV joints and then get it in the car tomorrow. Should be a pretty quick swap, I'm hoping. Should be pretty straightforward. Let's get into it. Yeah, there's absolutely no way we could throw this back on the car as is. This is 50 years of nastiness and road grime, so gross. All right, that's a bit better. Yeah, I started sanding it, but they were just so nasty that I started to give them a quick hose down before I actually dove in fully into it. You can see that this support here that I tried to clean up as best I could when it was on the car at some point, but you can only do so much with it on there. So I'm not going all out on these because I know these are going to be replaced. Once you add power to these Z cars, you know, this metal is so thin and there's so much movement back by the differential that these just tend to snap. So we're just going to make it pretty for the time being until we can get some better billet parts in here. Should do the trick. Keep in mind that these parts definitely are not going to be staying on the car. It's just a quick fix so that, you know, it can look at least presentable when the whole rear end goes in. But like I said, with the swap that's coming, these parts have a tendency to snap and break off, so we're not going to be using them on the build. But they'll look good up until that point that we can get some billet Arizona Z car parts on it. Just notice that this spot right here in particular is rusty, so I'm just going to do the same thing that we're doing on the other parts, and we're just going to grind this down, and we are going to prep this for paint as well because I want this to look nice. All right, next morning we had the paint drying overnight, so that should be good to go. But before we dive into dropping in the stock stuff on the Z, we're going to take a quick run over to our local Cars and Coffee. We just got a bunch of rain, which is kind of weird for here, but we'll see who came out. Hopefully there's something cool I can show you guys. Pretty small turnout today, so let's get back to it. I want to get this suspension all done today. All right, so we got everything cleaned up. As you can see, these parts are just about done drying. It's super wet out day, so not the best day to be painting, but I'm a little bit bummed on how this stuff came out. You can see after sitting a while, these CVs have started to rust, which kind of surprised me. You can see a little bit of corrosion here as well. You know, I thought this coating would be enough, but apparently not. Anyways, it's a Z, so the rust will match the rest of the car. Anyways, yeah, much cleaner, much better, a little bit more presentable and ready to go in. Now, I'm not sure if I showed this in a previous video, but I wanted to show what they did to this car. So when they went to the 280 tails, they basically tin can back. You can see all the material is still here. So here's the diff. This one is actually pulled off of the 71 car, but it's all stock pretty much. I did clean it up and paint it just because if you're gonna have it out of the car and you're gonna restore it, might as well make it pretty while it's out and it's easy to do. Me and Chacho did end up welding this rear end. That's gonna be a temporary fix, you know, just until I can save up a little bit and get the conversion for the CVs, and then do probably a WRX rear end because it's a limited slip and it's basically a direct bolt-in, but for the time being, this will work just fine. Okay, diff is all sorted. We have both of the bolts in on both sides. You can see these ones were actually missing and I had a minor freak out, but good thing about crashing your car and rebuilding it again is you have basically double of everything. So diff is ready to go. We're gonna go buy some quick gasket sealer, and then I just got this rear diff cover kind of cleaned up. I'm not gonna paint it because this is a part that can get scratched up and damaged so easily, but it is clean. So if you've ever worked on cars, especially old ones, you know how much of a pain in the butt it can be to work with dirty parts. So I like to at least clean everything before it goes back on. So now that this is all sorted, time to jack up the car. Okay, so we have the car all jacked up. So basically we have to drop out these brake lines. There's 3 bolts at the top of these coils, and then we have to drop it off of these supporting pieces here for the differential. The whole rear end should come out as a single piece, and then after that, good stuff goes in. Well, that's not good. So rear end is officially out, and we did find some weird stuff with it. So this differential, the guy that sold it to me told me it was a limited sip. I'm pretty sure that it's not, but if somebody can tell me otherwise, I would be stoked if it was. It has these markings on it, CD and 821B. I have no idea what they mean. I've never seen them on a Datsun differential before. It could be that they got it used somewhere and this is what the lot marked on it. It also says A and B there, which I have 2 other Datsun discs that don't say that. Also, if you can see that there, it has this star on it that looks like it came stock. And this looks different than any Datsun diff I've seen before, so maybe it is something special. If anyone knows what this is, please let me know in the comments. I'd be curious. But next thing is, what I'm gonna do is clean up these wheel wells just a little bit, and then we're gonna get those painted and pretty them up. All right, so those wheel wells are wiped down, so let's start prepping the rear end. You can see it's just about all ready to go. So next thing we need to do is, since I have part of the CV on this side here, I can't fill this up without oil draining out of the back. So let's put on the rear of it, attach it to the rest of the suspension here, then we can get it all prepped to go in the car. This side's good to go. This side we're gonna repack with grease real quick, just because this side's been open. A little bit of a hodgepodge setup. You can tell this was off of the 71 as well as those control arms. I did them at the same time, so they're both the same color, silver. This got pulled off of the black car behind me, and it looks like the previous owner did some sort of like solid mount, and looks like they welded this themselves. So we're gonna roll with this for the time being. Hopefully it doesn't give me any trouble, and if so, we can just swap it out if need be. We are getting there. Everything's almost hooked up. I'm about to get the diff cover on, but first thing, we have to lube up these bushings. These are full poly bushings, and last time I drove them, the car was so squeaky and so loud to drive. So I definitely want to lube them up and get them all good to go before we get this back on the car. This stuff is insanely sticky, so absolutely wear gloves. If you don't, you will regret it. Okay, so we have most of it dropped down. Both of the springs are unhooked. These main supports, I know it's really dark, these main supports under the differential are unhooked. The cross member is unbolted. And the last thing that we're stuck with is this e-brake line. And normally I would just hack it off, but I actually need this piece to work. And we have the C-clips off of it, which were right here, but now the spring is so compressed that I can't get it through here, so we're gonna do some cutting. Can I get some light? Moment of truth. Oh God, it looks so sketchy. If we did this right, it all should just drop out. There you go.
Hold on.
Oh, are we caught? Just gotta get this this little spring on the brake line. All right, here we are back at day 2. We had to wait a day since the rear fenders were drying, and I couldn't do any paint up until they were good to go. But we have them all cleaned. You can see the old paint showing from underneath, and this horrible nastiness right here. My beloved Haley's helping us out today, and we're about to get them bed lined, and then suspension should be ready to go in.
I like it though.
Differential fluid is in, so the whole rear end is good to go. We have the supports all bolted on. Over here, these are fully painted. They look so much better than before. I decided to throw the mustache bar in first, just to eliminate one more piece that's actually movable, since everything is pretty heavy. All right, let's give a quick update. I was off camera for a lot of this because it took all hands on deck, and I didn't really have the attention span to set up the camera and run that as well. But the rear end is almost finished getting in. So we have the coilovers on both sides hooked up. All we have to get are these rear supports that go right here behind the differential. So that's a wrap for tonight. Later in the week, like I said, we're headed out to the track, and we also have some parts from Techno Toy Tuning going on to this car, so look out for those both coming up. I want to thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up, and we'll see you next time.